for accounting firm growth. I'm your host, Cassy Clayman. This season, we're focusing on proving your worth. Today, we're discussing how small firms can prove their worth even with limited resources. Kelly Schuknecht from Summit Virtual CFO will walk us through how firms can focus on personalized services, niche expertise, and flexible solutions that resonate. Kelly Schuknecht is the marketing director at Summit Virtual CFO by Anders, where she's successfully implemented a content marketing strategy that's elevated the firm's brand and reach. With a background in both the publishing and accounting marketing sectors, Kelly brings a unique blend of storytelling and industry-specific marketing expertise to the table. Kelly, thank you so much for coming to the show today. Before we jump in, why don't you tell us a little more about yourself?
Yeah, well, thanks, Cassy. Thanks for having me. Like you mentioned, I'm the marketing director for Summit Virtual CFO by Anders. So Summit was a smaller firm. It was Summit CPA Group, and we merged with Anders a couple of years ago. So now we're kind of a division of Anders, but my team has focused on the marketing for Summit Virtual CFO by Anders now. Yeah, and so I've been with the firm for about 7 years now.
Great. So you merged into a larger firm, but you started as a smaller firm. Can you talk about how small firms effectively develop relationships and why that's important across all aspects of the work?
Yeah, I think that for Summit specifically, relationship building has been really the key to our success. When I came on, I think we were around a $5 million firm, and when we merged a couple of years ago, we were at 12 million. So we grew significantly during that time, and like I said, building relationships was really key. And I know we're going to talk a little bit later about our niche strategy as well. But so we'll get into that. But within our niche, we really focused on getting to know people within the industry, and we started going to events and networking within that industry, and at those events, we were developing these personal relationships with people that, it's funny, we have a client advisory board, and our client advisory board members, just recently, I was kind of asking them, like, how long did it take from when you learned about us to when you signed up for services with us? And for some of them, it was like years, 5 years. Some were less than that, but that was because they had known us, they had this relationship with us, but weren't quite ready to sign on with us. They weren't quite big enough, whatever that reason was. But that relationship kept them connected with us, where when they were ready, they signed on with us because they knew we were there. They knew who we were. We had hung out with them at these events, and just had those really close relationships with them over time.
That's really interesting. Can you talk about how you persevered, without having that direct ROI? I think some people think when you're developing business, you meet someone and then immediately they sign on with you, but we all know that's not true. So could you talk about how you persevered through some of those challenges?
Yeah, well, fortunately, not everyone is, a 5-year conversion, right? we have a lot that will meet us at an event, see us speak, find us online, whatever, however they discover us, where they sign up very quickly. So we have a lot of that as well. But some of them are it just takes a long time before they're ready. Our industry that we have really become the specialists within is digital agencies. And in that space, if an agency is under $1 million, they're just not ready to hire us. Like we are, we will be like the biggest item on their, line item on their budget, right? So, they need to get to a point where they're ready to hire an advisor and have, kind of invest in that level of service. But they want to grow, and they're kind of keeping an eye on us, right? So we have a mix of it, and I think that just knowing that some of those clients are going to take a long time to convert, but also focusing on who's in your pipeline right now, and trying to convert in more quickly when you can, obviously, helps as well. You can't wait 5+ years for every client, but just having a mix, I think, of different kind of conversion rates. But also, I think that it's important to kind of use that kind of knowledge or kind of that feedback that you're getting from clients, like or potential clients, if they're too small, knowing that you might need to kind of tweak your approach a little bit to get closer to the size or who your target client is, so that you're specifically trying to network with or reach out to the person who is going to be closer to being able to convert more quickly. The closer you can get to that ideal client profile in your marketing, the better it's going to be for your conversion rates.
Yeah, well, that brings up an interesting question. So, I mean, not every client, not every person out there is going to be a good fit. So we often talk about niche expertise. So how does specializing in a particular niche contribute to demonstrating that unique value to clients?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, we have a specific niche that we've worked with, niche or niche, however you want to say it. I'll probably go back and forth. I say it differently. But anyways, so we have worked specifically with digital agencies since about 2013, I believe. And because we were so focused on agencies, we really got to know exactly what's going on with agencies, what they need when they're ready to hire that outside, that outsourced CFO. We understand their KPIs. We understand their kind of their milestones with their growth. All of those things, because we really understand that about our clients, we're able to go into events and speak to that audience and answer questions. I mean, we can do a 1-hour presentation that could turn into 8 hours of questions from people, because they really know that we understand them and they want to know more and they want to pick our brains more. And because of that, like we stand out in the industry as like, these are the people to go to, right? So that has been our focus, our target niche, for whatever that is, the last 11 years or so. And over the last couple of years, we've started to kind of replicate that within 3 more industries, and really kind of focusing on these additional niches and how we can become the subject matter experts within those niches. So that, I think is really important to connect with that audience and help them see that you don't just know, a little bit about their industry and, a little bit about every industry, but, a lot about that specific industry and exactly what they're dealing with.
Yeah, so a benefit of focusing deeply is that you become a deep expert in it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That said, I'm curious how flexibility can become important in a small team around those specific industries and areas, or really anywhere else. How does flexibility as a small team add value?
Yeah, I think so. What I've seen, the first thing that makes me think of is, during COVID with our clients, probably every accounting firm experienced this, right? That clients were it depended on the industry, right? So some clients were doing really well during COVID and some were suffering. It just kind of depended on what industry they were in. Restaurants, for example, were not doing well during COVID, where digital agencies actually were, because people were then focusing on, the ways that they can grow online, and they were hiring, agencies to work on their website. And, there was things that were, affecting agencies differently than other industries, but every client was dealing with kind of just the chaos of what was happening during that time, and the PPP loans, and needing information about that. And so we were able to, during COVID, we kind of shifted gears. We weren't just doing business as usual, meeting with our clients as usual. We were still doing that, but then we were also saying, how else can we provide value to our clients and be as their go-to resource during this time. So we were doing webinars, just free webinars to give them information. We were, going kind of above and beyond to help with PPP loan information that they were needing and applications. So that, being flexible during that time. But then, now agencies have actually been struggling. Like, people are not hiring agencies right now, and the kind of the rise of AI is impacting certain kinds of agencies. So now it's paying attention to what is affecting clients and how we can be of best service to them during whatever those highs or lows are and kind of what they need during that time. I think that's how you provide the best value to your client, so they always know that you're aware of what's going on in the industry and you're on top of it, and being a resource to them whenever, in whatever way they need at that time.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a little bit what we were talking about before, where it comes to that client relationship. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how client trust and loyalty, like how they're essential, but then also how small firms can build and maintain those relationships. I mean, you gave a few examples, but I'd love for you to expound on that more.
Yeah. Well, so I mentioned that, we go to a lot of events, and in those events we've created those relationships. Once clients come on though, we have to maintain those relationships, and one of the things, we are a virtual CFO service provider. So our service just by nature is more of a relationship-based service. We are not just doing their taxes once a year or just sending them a report once a month with here's how you did last month, but we're meeting with our clients every single week. And in those meetings, we're really building a relationship with the client. And we, being a virtual firm, or now a virtual department within a larger firm. But we have to develop those relationships where it's not just like we get into a meeting and it's business as, we're just, right away looking at the reports, whatever. We're talking with clients, like, what's going on? How are things going? And having that kind of small talk at the beginning of the conversation, and just, how are the kids? You get to know people and what's going on in their lives over time in those meetings, especially when you are, meeting every week and kind of getting the updates on what's going on with them personally. And that helps, just in meeting with clients and them knowing you personally and vice versa, and just building that trust and having that relationship where you're part of their team. We come in as part of their team. We are part of their leadership team, and they trust us, they need us there, yeah, that relationship just is really, really important.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. Humanity is always going to win, right? Like finding those connections is always going to make people feel more included. We talked a little bit about, showcasing your value to people. And, we've talked about building those relationships. And at the top, we were talking about your content marketing strategies. So what are some practical ways that you can showcase your expertise through content marketing?
Yeah, so I mentioned that we kind of branched out into some additional niches, right? So kind of part of our approach to that was taking a person, a subject matter expert in the industry, and so one of the industries right now that we're launching, or I can't say launch anymore, it's been a year, but that we're kind of branching out into is cannabis. So as part of getting to know the cannabis industry, we have one of our CFOs who's just really specialized in cannabis. He understands the industry. And so we started, sending him out to events. So he's going to, in fact, I'm going with him next week. We have an event, a conference for cannabis in Michigan that we're going to. And through that, we're networking, getting to know people there, getting to know kind of who the big players are in the industry, and what are the topics that they're covering at this conference, right? And then we have a podcast. So then our CFO, who is working, our kind of specialist in that industry, can then be talking about some of those topics that they're covering at the conference. He can then carry those out in his own kind of in his content, his conversations with people. Then we take that and we turn kind of every recorded episode into also written material. So we develop articles from that, blog posts, and we take that content and we try to get it on other websites, not just our own website, but we try to get that out to as many people as possible to establish his expertise and establish kind of his platform as being, a thought leader in that space. So that for us, it's the content, but then also the personal branding. So we have that person who becomes kind of the face of that industry. And when he's going to these events, people start to recognize him. They know who he is. They've seen his podcast, or I say seen his podcast because we do podcast audio and video. but he becomes known in that industry, right? And so those have all been kind of an important part of our go-to-market strategy.
Yeah, you're talking from start to finish, leveraging the expertise into becoming a thought leader, but then not reinventing the wheel, utilizing that content, reusing it for various avenues, which for a small team, you have to be able to do that kind of stuff. It's crucial, right?
Right. Yeah. And leveraging it as much as possible. So, not just doing a podcast interview and then, that's it, we move on, but taking that and then how can we create snippets of that interview that we can share in videos on LinkedIn? How can we get quotes and share different, different types of posts to kind of just reshare that same episode, but in different ways to capture people's attention differently. And then, like I said, turning it into an article. So now it's a whole, different way of reaching people. I didn't used to be a video person at all. I didn't understand watching videos on YouTube or anything before. I do now, but like a couple years ago, like that was just not my world, right? So I would gravitate to an article rather than a video. So this way, you're capturing people kind of their different ways of absorbing content and absorbing information and making sure that you're reaching people in the ways that are best for them.
Yeah. And focus on the people, right? That makes a lot of sense. People learn differently. People engage, like you just said, people engage in content differently. And as the marketer or the person expressing all of those expertise levels, then you have to know when and where to put that information.
Yeah. And I think the more the better. I mean, I think a lot of times we, it's like, oh, I shared it, like that's it, but it takes a lot of times to get people's attention. Like they might see something, kind of glance through it, they're busy, they're scrolling through LinkedIn, they don't really pay attention, but they start seeing it, I don't know, you don't want to like just kill them with it, but right, but like share it over time, kind of spread it out over time, but in different ways, and eventually capture people's attention. If they didn't see it the first time, maybe they saw it the second time, the third time, whatever. But just repurposing that content as much as possible to get it out, and reach the right people.
Absolutely. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about your process when you know that you're going to go down an avenue of doing that for a podcast. Like, how do you determine what you're going to use that content for?
Yeah, I've done a webinar on our content windmill. It's on our YouTube channel, so you can search content windmill on our YouTube channel, and you'll get more information about how we kind of created that. I used to call it a content engine, but I like the idea of the content windmill, where you have all these inner workings of this windmill that are like creating this beautiful thing on the outside that people don't all see all the inner workings, right? But the inner workings for me are, we do that whether it's a recording, audio, video, whatever, but we take that one thing and then we turn it into all of these different pieces of content. We pretty much do it with every podcast episode we have. Every webinar, we have maybe different kind of branches of where they go, but nothing is just like one and done. Everything turns into multiple pieces of social media content, video clips, an article, or maybe we might even be able to get 2 or 3 articles out of a podcast episode, depending on kind of what topics were covered. And then we kind of have different ways of trying to get that out there. So whether it goes on our blog, it goes on a LinkedIn post, or it go like a LinkedIn, what do they call those?
The videos?
They have like a LinkedIn like article or whatever, like a longer form content on LinkedIn. Or if we try to get that on somebody else's, so like AIM, for example, we might write an article specifically for AIM and reach out to somebody at AIM to try to get our article posted on your blog if you do guest posts. Like we look for those types of opportunities as well. But just however we can get that out there to different ways, whether we're trying to get that link back to our site or reach the audience of whoever that is that we're reaching out to, all of those things. I mean, there's just so many ways to get your content out there. So we kind of have our kind of outline of like, here's what we want to do with each piece of content, and just maximize the reach.
Awesome. Work smarter, not harder.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Kelly, we're going to wrap up here. Thank you so much for a great
That went
conversation.
so
Uh,
fast.
you went way too fast. Can you let people know where they can find you or if there's anything coming up that you'd like them to know about?
Yeah, so if you're interested in what we do at Summit, we are at Summit. So our website has not changed yet with our merger. So it's summitcpa.net, and that's where you can find out about Summit Virtual CFO services. And then I am on LinkedIn. I assume you'll have some show notes or something for helping people spell my name, but Kelly Schuknecht on LinkedIn. And I do post content about marketing and specifically about accounting firm marketing. So would love to connect with people.
Fantastic. Well, that's it for another episode of Amplify, the podcast for accounting firm growth. A big thanks to all of you for listening today and to Kelly for joining us and sharing her expertise. If you like what you heard, we'd love a review on the podcast platform you're listening to us on now. And be sure to listen to the other episodes of this season. Our theme is Proving Your Worth. You can learn more about Amplify and our past seasons on accountingmarketing.org. Look for the podcast under publications. I'm Cassy, marketing coordinator at Topel Forman. If you want to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn. Thanks again, and we look forward to having you join us for another episode soon.